Long before the America we know, a group of fighters determined to help the U.S. win the war, nearly wiped completely from history.
They wanted to make sure that their stories would never be forgotten. And that's why they formed the organization of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Almost unable to join the war effort in the 1940s because of something out of their control, the color of their skin.
They were fighting two wars, one overseas and one at home, to be equal.
Among them, Jose Rizal Alfalin, late husband to Bertha Alfalin, father to 4 surviving children, and my grandfather.
I'm Bertha Alfalin.
And I'm Jose Alfalin.
Jose growing up next to an airfield in Louisville, Kentucky. Loving what he saw soaring above him in the sky.
He would jump on his bike when he'd see them coming and fly out, run out to the airfield to watch the planes taking off and landing.
Yesterday I fulfilled one of my ambitions as a combat pilot. I got one airplane.
One of the things that all of them had in common was their love of flight.
A prevailing trait among Tuskegee Airmen.
He said, that's what I want to do. I want to fly. I want to fly like the airplanes.
At first, it was a dream that did not seem possible in a country of extreme racism.
They were actually asking the questions, could black people fly planes?
Following pressure from activists and political groups, black men were finally able to join the military in 1941. Jose graduating from high school in Louisville early, just to follow his passion and join the Army Air Corps. But segregation in the military still very real for the Tuskegee Airmen.
You're classed as a second-class citizen, meaning that you're not as good as these people. And you don't even deserve to go fight for your country. And they had to prove that they were good enough to fight for their country.
Jose remembering well what it was like to be a black pilot, even off the base.
After dark, you were free meat for the Klan, the police, or anybody.
They ran into signs on restrooms that said black and white. They were offended. Here we are trying to fly airplanes to defend the country, and they have separated the restrooms of all things.
I asked them up front, I said, well, why would you want to go fight for a country that disrespects you so much? They said, compared to what the Nazis were doing, America is a great country.
Jose and the rest of the black airmen training hard. They had a war to fight, but also a truth to prove.
They really went through rigorous training to make sure they were ready to fly and not disgrace their race.
Among the Tuskegee Airmen, there were several fighting groups. The 99th Fighter Squadron, among the 332nd Fighter Group, the first to go overseas, noted as one of the most successful escort groups of the Army Air Corps. Jose, part of the 477th Bombardment Group. He was ready to fight, but just before he could, something happened.
2 weeks before they were supposed to be shipped over there, Truman dropped the bomb, the H-bomb, and of course the war ended.
Even though Jose never made it to the battlefield, he had fought.
They opened the door for blacks to participate in every aspect of the military.
Not just black people, but all people of color.
We're proud of their accomplishments. They didn't have the best equipment, they didn't have the best airplanes, but they were so determined and so proud. It just makes me extremely proud that my father was a part of that.
Jose passed away in 1997, making his mark on history, leaving his name in the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and his legacy left in the eyes that sparkle as they tell his story. The Tuskegee Airmen were not fully recognized in history for their achievements until decades later, when President George W. Bush awarded them the Medal of Honor in 2007. But surviving family members making sure they are remembered.
You can't wipe history.
Kiara Alfalin.
It's there, and it will be there.
Cap KView Local News. Many Tuskegee Airmen went on to accomplish far more after the war ended. A friend of my grandfather's went on to be one of the first black commercial air pilots. Many continued in the military. My grandfather, however, was unable to rejoin due to continued prejudice toward black pilots. Instead, he went to college at the University of Colorado, where he met my grandmother, where he was eventually recruited to be an engineer at Boeing in Seattle. As for the Tuskegee Airmen, their legacy lives on in Seattle at the Tuskegee chapter and many more across the country.